What's going on, everybody? Bryan Fonseca here, checking in on YouTube. We are back independently and covering for the second video and the final one, Tyson Fury, Oleksandr Usyk rematch. Should have said Oleksandr Usyk first because he is the A side after all and the champion. But nonetheless, Oleksandr Usyk, Tyson Fury rematch of their May 2024 bout. Oleksandr Usyk won a split decision 115-112, 114-113, and lost a 114-113 on one card. At the time of the fight, I also had a 114-113 for Usyk, but may have changed my mind a little bit, which we're going to get into in a second. That doesn't mean I all of a sudden think Tyson Fury won the fight. Just, putting that out there. But did rewatch it recently and do have a film study preview out. We were looking at the first fight and just some of the things that jumped out. Tyson Fury's jab, Oleksandr Usyk's pressure, the uppercuts from Tyson Fury and the body work, and Oleksandr Usyk finally closing in on Tyson Fury, changing the fight by rocking him and taking over really that second half of the fight. I thought it was probably closer than some people think, but I still think Oleksandr Usyk definitely won that fight. So we're doing our last preview for this, and Oleksandr Usyk and Tyson Fury are going to get it on again. I just want to take a minute to appreciate that this fight is happening. This is one of the best fights you can make in boxing, period. Full stop. One of the best heavyweight fights that you could make in the division, obviously, not just now because they're the two best, but in like this modern era of heavyweight boxing. There was a time, a long period after the 90s where it was like, what's going on with heavyweight boxing? What's the future? And then the Klitschko's have the title and they're sort of just running the sport from the heavyweight division, post Lennox Lewis especially. And a lot of people tuned out because even though the Klitschko's were excellent, just the level of competition didn't feel like it was quite there, even though you got your occasional upset. And then you move into like the mid 2010s, you start seeing like Anthony Joshua emerge and Deontay Wilder emerge, along with some other heavyweights, but those were kind of the faces. And then you had guys like Luis Ortiz, who was very, very tough, for example, and Andy Ruiz later on obviously upsets Anthony Joshua in a very high profile way, so on and so forth. Not going to name all the heavyweights and every single heavyweight, but I feel like the division now is in a little bit of a more interesting place because you just have a whole bunch of guys who could beat one another, and no one outside of these two feel like, they're really untouchable. And to be honest with you, these guys are only really untouchable against everyone else, apparently not each other, because they just had a close fight. It feels like Oleksandr Usyk and Tyson Fury are staring down at everybody else in the heavyweight division, and Oleksandr Usyk is obviously staring down at Tyson Fury because he beat him the first time. But right now, it just feels like there's Usyk, there's Fury, and then there's everyone else, and we'll see what happens with the rest of the heavyweight division. But I'm very optimistic that we can start getting some interesting fights with the heavyweights. We obviously have one coming up with Daniel Dubois and Joseph Parker, which I'm very excited about. We'll see what Anthony Joshua's next move is, and Zhilei Zhang and guys like that. Like, I think the heavyweight division, Martin Bakole also is going to be in a very, very interesting place for a couple of years now, and hopefully longer than that. So one of the narratives that I want to talk about is Oleksandr Usyk dominating Tyson Fury. I did not see that in the first fight. I think Oleksandr Usyk won, don't get me wrong, but there are some people who think like Oleksandr Usyk won 9 rounds to 3. I do not see that. I don't see how you could watch the first 7 rounds of this fight and not think Tyson Fury was at least up 4-3. You could even argue for 5-2 convincingly before Oleksandr Usyk takes it over. But at the same time, I don't think Tyson Fury got robbed. The other narrative, there are people who are, maybe they're Tyson Fury diehards, or maybe they just saw the fight in a different way. And I want to be respectful here because on this channel, we're not here to like just do the bullshit that everyone else does. Like, we're here for a conversation, for real shit, right? But with Tyson Fury, I don't think he got robbed either. I think while it was close, and I had a 114-113 the first time with Oleksandr Usyk winning, I thought mainly because of what happened round 8 and beyond. Whereas I thought Tyson Fury did really well those first 7 rounds where he won 4 or 5 of them. But Oleksandr Usyk clearly took over and won the majority of those last rounds, if not all, the final 5. I ended up landing at 115-112 for Oleksandr Usyk on a rewatch recently when I was doing the film study or whatever the case may be. And then rewatched it again after that. And I was like, yeah, I probably go 115-112 Usyk here. But I still think it was a close fight. That would indicate it's a close fight. That would actually indicate that Oleksandr Usyk, at the end of the day, wins 7 rounds. Tyson Fury gets 5 and loses the point because of the knockdown. It's worthy of a rematch. Clearly, Glad we're getting it. Just wanted to talk about that really quickly. Now, as it pertains to this fight coming up, because I don't think Tyson Fury got robbed the first time, and I don't think Oleksandr Usyk was getting disrespected by the judges. I do think like that would have been pretty fucked up if Oleksandr Usyk lost that decision after what he did from round 8 on. Now we're here for the second part of this, and the conspiracy theorists are out, and I'm not going to say that they're completely off their rocker here, but Oleksandr Usyk is a favorite, but there are a growing amount of people, there's a growing sentiment that Tyson Fury is going to get the decision if it's close, because of money, robbery, a bias, or whatever the case may be. I'm just going to say I hope that doesn't play out that way unless Tyson Fury actually wins the fight. Like if Tyson Fury wins the fight and does what he's supposed to do, then yes, he should get the victory. And I think if Oleksandr Usyk does what he did in the first fight, or perhaps better, he should get the victory. I hope there's no bullshit with the judges, but we'll see. There's obviously a lot of money in a potential trilogy here, so there would be a big investment behind Tyson Fury potentially winning this fight. I just hope that we don't get something unruly to end what has been an interesting year in boxing. One of the more interesting ones, probably post-COVID, especially, I would say. And this is one of the biggest fights that we've gotten. So I think that in this fight, it's been very hard to predict. I feel like the smart side, the safe bet, if there is one in this fight, I don't really think there is one, but the conventional wisdom would be like, all right, Oleksandr Usyk did what he did the first time. He can perhaps figure things out even a little bit quicker because he can provide an extension of what we saw last time out in the end, particularly. And we'll pressure Tyson Fury early again, and we'll be able to hit Tyson Fury to the body and make him a little bit uncomfortable and, really get to that overhand left and those looping hooks, which is really what staggered Tyson Fury to begin with. And he didn't like the sting on those punches, even though he mocked Oleksandr Usyk for being a middleweight going into that fight. But I thought that was really, really something that stood out to me, was how Oleksandr Usyk, and I talk about this in the film study a little bit, implemented that pressure. But I do think Tyson Fury, he dealt with it well early on for the most part, not like expertly. Like you could argue Tyson Fury lost 2 of the first 3 rounds in that fight. But with Tyson Fury, he clearly, from 4 through 7, he was really in a better rhythm there. He was landing more uppercuts to the head as Oleksandr Usyk was applying the pressure. He was hitting him to the body. He was working off his jab pretty nicely and felt like he had more moments. The punch stats would also back this up, which punch stats, I would say, don't always judge a fight on punch stats, but sometimes they could reflect what you did see in that fight. And for me, I think the quote unquote safe thing would be, Oleksandr Usyk wins again by decision. But we don't know how Tyson Fury is coming out of a loss. He's never lost before as a professional, and he has been dropped many times in his career. And these are both guys, closer to 40 than they are 30. Tyson Fury could win this. A stoppage would kind of stun me in either direction. I think Oleksandr Usyk clearly figured something out. Maybe we can go as far as to say Tyson Fury is a little bit chinny, given what we've seen in his career. But ultimately, I think this is going to be a great, great boxing match. Where I would land is that Oleksandr Usyk probably wins the second one. But I think because of what I was outlining earlier, if you're Oleksandr Usyk, you can't help but feel like you need to do more than what you did the first time around, and you have to dominate, actually dominate, not like what super fans are saying, oh, he dominated. No, actually dominate this fight to potentially get a fair shake. I think Oleksandr Usyk is a champion, but he needs to fight like he's the underdog. He needs to fight like he's a challenger. And I think he's going to come in with that mentality because he knows probably better than us, I'm sure. Not probably, he certainly does, that there's a lot of money in a potential trilogy. But if he beats Tyson Fury again, one, it would be massive, but he knows that his resume would be unquestionable, solidified. And if Oleksandr Usyk wanted to retire after that, we couldn't blame him, given that he's beaten Anthony Joshua. He beat Daniel Dubois, not without some controversy, but he beat Daniel Dubois. We'll give it to him, obviously. And he beat Tyson Fury, and he's got just a murderer's row of his last several fights, if you will, including obviously the cruiserweight division, where he was the best of the best before moving up to heavyweight, and one of the most remarkable careers we've seen recently. And if Tyson Fury wins, we already know what's next. You got to do the trilogy. especially if he does it in spectacular fashion. And I want to know what Tyson Fury is going to be following a loss. That's sort of my main thing here. So I can't wait to find that out. It's going to be really, really, I'm expecting another close fight. I'm definitely going to sprinkle a little bit of money on a draw because you're going to get great odds for that. I kind of lean Usyk here, but I think Tyson Fury obviously has the capability of doing so. It's just I'm not sure I trust his chin to just be upright for 12 rounds, given what we've seen. And I think he may be a little bit more tactical in this bout and a little bit more cautious and really try to fight from range and really try to hurt Usyk to the body early. But we'll see. I think it's going to be as fascinating as it was the first time around. I hope that the fight is good enough to warrant a trilogy, because why not? That's all we have. Those are previews. Check out the film study if you missed it, and we will be back on the channel with a recap after the fight. Take care and have a good one. Thanks for your support. Appreciate it.